Chapter 54. On this day, my office and all our other facilities are being relocated to Tempest's multipurpose castle. Every executive was bustling with activity, orchestrating the transition. Amidst the chaos, a personal letter arrived for me. It read, Demon Lord Rimuru, I would like to discuss some matters with you that I didn't give you a chance to address during our first encounter. Hinata Sakaguchi. The letter caught me off guard, but as I read it, I realized this might be a favorable opportunity. I would need to approach this carefully. The night was cold, the kind that seeps through your clothes and makes you shiver even by a bonfire. So, as I was saying, Lady Shizu, we were traveling toward the capital of the Bloomend Kingdom to investigate the matter. However, unexpected things happened, Fuse explained, his voice steady despite the chill. Shizu, sitting close to the fire, responded thoughtfully, that's to be expected. Rimuru-san must be very curious about the perpetrators behind these events. After all, they attacked Tempest. She spoke with a quiet confidence, as though she already knew the outcome. For those who followed Rimuru, his presence was a shield against all odds. But if one of his family members went missing, that would reveal the dual nature of his kindness and cruelty, a dangerous combination. Well, yes, Fuse admitted with a sigh. However, we cannot move carelessly. Things have been truly unfavorable for us. Shizu slightly tilted her head. What exactly are these unfavorable things? Fuse's tone grew heavier. During the human nations versus Tempest War, we uncovered that Farmus and the Bloomend Kingdom were the real perpetrators. But the strange part is, our enemies seem to predict our every move. At this, the fire seemed to flicker ominously. The answer became obvious. The most logical conclusion was that Tempest would investigate these two nations. Their proximity to Tempest only heightened suspicion. Testarossa, who had been silent until now, intervened with a sharp edge in her voice. Don't misunderstand, Lady Shizu. Even if they anticipate our actions, they cannot possibly survive if we act seriously. But it is our Lord's wish not to harm civilians unnecessarily. The real challenge lies in avoiding a misstep, because even a single error could lead these filthy humans to annihilate each other. That doesn't serve Lord Rimuru's best interests. Masayuki chimed in next. If you're wondering why human nations are so fragile right now, it's because of two key events. The Free Guild Association has disbanded, and the Holy Empire of Rubrio's Western Saints Church has declared they won't engage in one-sided warfare anymore, especially against Tempest. Wait, the Free Guild disbanded? Shizu asked, her eyes narrowing. Masayuki nodded. Grandmaster Yuki Kagarazaka dissolved it himself. I feel betrayed. Yuki-san was the one who endorsed me to Farmus, and now he's abandoning everything after it failed. Testarossa added in a low voice, something doesn't add up with that Grandmaster. Her crimson eyes gleamed, but she paused, unable to articulate what exactly felt off. Fuse broke the silence. Well, we can ponder that later. For now, there is good news. As we speak, Diablo and Yoon's team are conquering Farmus, and reports indicate they're succeeding. Additionally, the Council of the West is holding a meeting near the capital of Bloomend. The Council? Shizu asked. Fuse nodded. They're holding Bloomend accountable. All parties involved in this mess are being scrutinized. Shizu's gaze turned toward the dark horizon. The flames from the bonfire flickered against her face, casting a shadow of doubt that mirrored the uneasy situation they were in. Shizu placed a gentle hand on Masayuki's shoulder. Her touch warm and reassuring despite the cold night air. I've heard you did a lot to earn the trust of the Bridewood villagers. You have my thanks, she said, her tone soft but sincere. Masayuki's face lit up with surprise, his expression a mix of embarrassment and pride. Ah, no. It was the least I could do, he stammered, rubbing the back of his head awkwardly. But Shizu shook her head, her gaze unwavering. No, you did quite a lot. Honestly, I'm not confident I could have done the same. Her sentiment was comforting, an anchor for Masayuki amidst his lingering unease after Yuki's betrayal. He blushed bright red at the praise, quickly turning his attention elsewhere to mask his flustered reaction. For a moment, Shizu allowed herself a faint smile. But behind her composed demeanor, her thoughts churned. Masayuki's words, and his innocence, stirred something in her. Yuki Kagarazaka wasn't just misguided, he was guilty of far more than she initially realized. Shizu's mind wandered back to a time before her evolution. When she had been in her nascent state, hatching as an egg, there had been something foreign and sinister lingering in her heart, a subtle presence she hadn't understood. At the time, her abilities had been too weak to make sense of it. But now, with the vast analytical powers of Raphael, she could finally seek answers. As if responding to her unspoken command, Raphael's voice echoed within her consciousness. Analysis complete. The latch has been identified as Control Heart, a mechanism from the greedy King Mammon. Greedy King Mammon is an ultimate skill, therefore prior to master gaining an ultimate skill herself prevents you from resisting it. Closing square bracket. Shizu's eyes widened slightly. Control Heart. That explained the strange feeling she had carried for so long, a subtle manipulation that had dug into her very essence. Just as she processed this revelation, a detailed report flew into her mind, pieced together by Raphael's infallible calculations. Shizu clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. If Yuki had a hand in planting this insidious skill within her, or worse, if he had knowingly allied with someone wielding the greedy King Mammon, then his betrayal was far deeper than she or anyone else had imagined. Shizu stared into the flames, her thoughts racing as the revelation from Raphael settled into her mind. Control Heart, but when? She began sifting through her memories, retracing her interactions with Yuki. The sinister skill wasn't something that could have appeared on its own. Someone, Yuki, must have planted it deliberately. When did he have the chance? Was it during his and Hinata's mentorship graduation? She wondered, her mind flashing back to that day. She had been proud of them, two promising students stepping into their own futures. Could he have used that moment, when her guard was down, to act? Or maybe it was even earlier. Could it have been when I was still mentoring them? Her memories of those days felt so distant now, her focus entirely on nurturing their potential. Yuki had always seemed so eager to learn, so earnest. Was that all an act? Then, an even darker thought struck her. Or, was it the very first time he ever saw me? The possibility chilled her to the core. If that were true, it meant his intentions had been malicious from the start. Every kind word, every gesture of respect, it had all been a lie. Shizu's hand unconsciously moved to her chest, as though trying to feel for the latch Raphael had identified. The weight of betrayal pressed heavily against her, not just as a mentor but as someone who had trusted Yuki, even admired his potential. Probability analysis. The earliest opportunity correlates with initial encounters. However, further contextual memory assessment is required to refine the timeline. Raphael's calm voice broke through her thoughts, offering clarity but no comfort. Her grip tightened. This wasn't just about her now, it was about everything Yuki's actions could mean for Tempest, for the people she cared about, and for the fragile peace Rimuru had worked so hard to build. Yuki Kagurazaka, what are you really after? So that's what happened during the Walpurgis. Now we're moving to the Eastern Empire, Yuki said casually, as though discussing a mundane office memo rather than a monumental shift in strategy. Quite a bold move, boss, Kaguli remarked, her voice laced with curiosity. Yes, Yuki replied, waving off her implied concern. May I ask your reason, boss? Laplace chimed in, his casual tone masking a deeper interest. Right now, boss is making bold moves. Crashing Walpurgis and deliberately letting human nations fall. Isn't it better to manipulate them instead? Footman added, his gravelly voice cutting through the air. Yuki paused for a moment, a devilish grin spreading across his face as his eyes gleamed with dangerous intent. Good question, Laplace. And Footman, he said, his tone dripping with amusement. You're not wrong, it would be more efficient to manipulate the human nations. But efficiency doesn't interest me anymore. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled as he continued. You see, I'm not playing this game for efficiency. I want to end this game, or at least fast forward its process. Rimuru-san is the only piece on this board worth playing against. I want to meet him again, as soon as possible, at the summit of this world. His smile twisted, becoming something darker. As for the human nations, they're nothing but distractions. By keeping Rimuru-san busy dealing with their fall, I gain time to prepare for the real fun. Laplace and Footman exchanged uneasy glances. And when Rimuru-san is finally gone, Yuki continued, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper, I'll destroy this world with just a snap of my fingers. The room fell silent. Kaguli's lips curled into a small, knowing smile, but her eyes betrayed the faintest flicker of apprehension. Laplace scratched the back of his head, unsure whether to admire Yuki's audacity or fear the consequences. Tear, on the other hand, let out a low, rumbling laugh. Boss, you really are one hell of a piece of work. Destroy the world, huh? Guess we'd better stick close to you, then. Yuki chuckled, leaning forward with an air of confidence. Oh, you'll want to stick close, all right. After all, the best view of the end is from the center of the storm. Yuki leaned back, his expression dark and contemplative as he continued. Seems like Rimuru-san isn't making any significant moves to shift the timeline much, which is why he's the only real threat we have right now. That's also the reason I've been powering up my army. Miranda, Vega, Damrata, and a few other allies we've recruited along the way, they're formidable, but it's not enough. If Rimuru-san decides to evolve his guardians immediately, we'll be at an instant disadvantage. Especially that black demon butler. Yuki's lips twisted in frustration. During the summit, he was on another level entirely. Laplace chuckled nervously. Yeah, that guy's terrifying. Makes you wonder if we're ready for this. Footman cut in, his gravelly tone serious. Speaking of allies, boss, do you think we can trust that collaborator of yours? Yuki's devilish grin returned. The overlord of the void. Trust him? Absolutely not. But we need him. He doesn't think or speak like us, but he's intelligent, incredibly powerful, and, more importantly, hates Rimuru-san just as much as I do. Of course, I'm under no illusion that he's using me in the same way. I'm using him to destroy Rimuru. Kagami frowned. You're saying he's stronger than you? Yuki nodded without hesitation. 10 times stronger, at least. If I fought him one-on-one, I wouldn't last a second. Yet, despite that, Rimuru-san managed to defeat him. That alone speaks volumes about how much power Rimuru has accumulated. Kagami's eyes widened in astonishment. That power threshold is astonishing. Yuki's voice grew colder. Kagami, you don't fully grasp the scale yet. I might already be hundreds of thousands of times stronger than Velzard, but even that pales in comparison to the overlord of the void and Rimuru-san. And it's not just about raw power or magical count. Their abilities go beyond comprehension, godlike in every sense of the word. He turned his gaze toward the flickering flames of the bonfire. The overlord of the void feels like an entity designed to be the ultimate incarnation of destruction. As for Rimuru-san, his strength isn't what concerns me most, it's his trump card. Yuki's grin faded, his expression hardening. That annoyingly powerful manas of his. It's a sentient, godlike entity on its own, and it amplifies everything he does to absurd levels. If we're going to kill Rimuru-san, our first move has to be neutralizing that manas. As Yuki finished his sentence, the sound of the spatial elevator activating echoed through the sleek, dimly lit office. The air shimmered, and the elevator doors slid open with a soft hiss. Damrata, Vega, and Miranda stepped out, their presences as imposing as ever. Boss, Damrata greeted with a slight bow. We're here to pick you up. Your transfer to the Eastern Empire has been approved. Miranda crossed her arms, her sharp eyes glinting with amusement. Everything's in place. Are we ready to move? Vega grinned wickedly, slamming a fist into his open palm. Finally, let's get going already. Yuki stood from his chair, stretching casually as if he hadn't just been discussing world-shattering plans moments ago. He turned to the trio, a familiar smirk playing on his lips. Foo. Let's go, then. The Eastern Empire awaits, and there's no time to waste. He began walking toward the elevator, his calm and calculated demeanor unshaken. Just as he reached the glowing threshold of the elevator, Laplace, lounging near the corner of the room, called out to him. Wait, boss, I've got one last question. Yuki paused mid-step, glancing back over his shoulder. Oh, what's on your mind, Laplace? Laplace straightened, his usual casual demeanor tinged with a hint of curiosity. What about Clayman? For a moment, the room fell silent, the faint hum of the elevator filling the void. Yuki turned fully, his expression unreadable, save for the faint glimmer of amusement in his eyes. Foo. Clayman, you say? He mused, letting the question hang. He stepped closer to the elevator, the dim lighting casting sharp shadows across his face. Of course, we'll resurrect him. His grin widened, taking on an edge of something darker, more foreboding. But not now. No, we'll bring him back at the end of the world. Without another word, Yuki stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut with a quiet hiss, and the elevator began its ascent. The others, who had been standing silently by, exchanged brief glances before following Yuki inside. Kagami, Laplace, Tear, Footman, Miranda, and Vega all filed into the elevator, each of them deep in thought as the doors closed behind them. As they descended further into the depths of their shared ambition, Kagami smirked. Well, the boss certainly knows how to make an exit. Laplace stretched his arms and grinned, always dramatic, that one. Tear's expression remained neutral, though her eyes glinted with a quiet determination. Let's just hope. His plan works. For all our sakes. Footman chuckled, his gravelly voice adding a layer of dark humor. There's no stopping him now. Best just enjoy the ride. Miranda's gaze remained sharp as ever, her focus unwavering. The Eastern Empire awaits, and there's no turning back now. Vega's grin widened as he adjusted his gloves. Time to make our mark. Shizu and the others woke up the next day in a hurried manner. The sounds of loud thuds reverberated through their camp, approaching hooves, growing nearer by the second. They quickly gathered their bearings and rushed outside to find a scene of chaos. The village of Bridgewood, once a peaceful and quiet settlement, was now in flames. The houses were crumbling, engulfed by fire, and the cries of the villagers filled the air. A horde of soldiers, their armor gleaming under the morning sun, stormed through the village, cutting down any civilian they encountered. The ground was littered with bodies, and the once thriving village was now a war zone. Shizu's heart clenched at the sight. So this is the cleansing exercises, she muttered under her breath. The end.